What if the biggest difference between a billionaire and a whole average investor isn't intelligence, luck, or even income? What if it's the way they make decisions? Because here's something most people miss about extreme wealth. Billionaires don't necessarily have access to a secret investment nobody else knows about. They often have something more valuable, a different framework for deciding what to do with money, time, risk, and opportunity. And that's important because you don't need $1 billion to use those principles. You can apply the same thinking to a $5,000 portfolio, a six-figure salary, a small business, or your retirement account. So instead of copying billionaire morning routines or trying to work 100 hours a week, let's examine the financial habits that actually matter and why they work. The first is perhaps the most important. They prioritize ownership over income. Income pays you for what you do. Ownership allows you to participate in what something becomes. Imagine two people each earning $150,000 a year. One uses most of that income to increase their lifestyle. The other uses a portion to acquire productive assets, such as diversified investments, business equity, or other assets capable of generating value over time. Their incomes may look identical. Their financial futures may not. That's because income is a flow. Ownership can become a growing stock of wealth. This doesn't mean everyone needs to start a company. It means that over time, you want at least some of your money working through assets rather than relying entirely on your next paycheck. And there's a deeper principle here. The wealthy often try to make decisions that scale. If you personally work 1 extra hour, you get paid for 1 extra hour. But if you build a system, own an asset, develop intellectual property, or invest in a productive business, the potential impact isn't necessarily limited to the hours you personally work. That's the power of leverage. And leverage isn't always debt. Knowledge, technology, employees, distribution, and capital can all multiply the impact of a good decision. But leverage has another side. Which brings us to the second habit. They understand asymmetric risk. A great opportunity isn't simply one where you could make a lot of money. It's one where the potential reward is attractive relative to what you could lose. Consider an investment where you could potentially double your money, but there's also a realistic chance of losing most of your capital. That isn't automatically a good opportunity. Now imagine another opportunity where the potential return is more modest, but the downside is limited and manageable. The second opportunity may be far more attractive depending on the circumstances. This is why sophisticated investors think beyond, how much can I make? They also ask, how much can I lose and can I recover if I'm wrong? Because losing 50% requires a 100% gain just to get back to where you started. A catastrophic loss doesn't simply hurt your portfolio. It destroys future compounding. That's why protecting capital can be just as important as pursuing returns. The third habit is thinking in opportunity costs. Every dollar has multiple possible destinations. Spend $20,000 on a luxury purchase, and you've not only spent $20,000, you've also given up whatever that money could potentially have done elsewhere. Invest it. Use it to acquire a business skill. Put it toward a business. Keep it available for an opportunity. Or simply reduce expensive debt. None of these choices is automatically correct. The important question is, what is the best alternative use of this money? That question forces you to compare choices instead of evaluating each purchase in isolation. And opportunity cost applies to time as well. Spending 10 hours chasing a tiny financial improvement may have a much lower expected value than spending those same 10 hours developing a skill that could increase your earning power for years. The wealthy don't just ask where their money goes. They ask where their resources produce the greatest future value. The fourth habit is making decisions based on probabilities rather than predictions. Nobody consistently knows exactly what the stock market will do next year. Nobody knows which technology will dominate a decade from now. Nobody knows which business will become the next giant. So, instead of pretending uncertainty doesn't exist, financially sophisticated decision makers work with it. They consider multiple scenarios. What happens if things go well? What happens if growth is slower than expected? What happens if the investment falls 30%? What happens if income temporarily disappears? And most importantly, can the plan survive the bad scenario? This is a major difference between speculation and disciplined decision-making. You don't need to predict the future perfectly. You need a strategy that doesn't require you to be right about everything. The fifth habit is keeping lifestyle growth slower than financial growth. This is one of the most underestimated principles in wealth building. Imagine your income rises from $100,000 to $200,000. If your expenses also rise dramatically, you may feel richer without becoming proportionally wealthier. But if your income increases while your savings and investments increase even faster, you're building financial capacity. This doesn't mean wealthy people never enjoy their money. Quite the opposite. The goal is to spend intentionally. The danger is when every increase in income automatically creates a permanent increase in expenses. A larger house can mean a larger mortgage, higher taxes, higher insurance, higher maintenance, and higher opportunity costs. Lifestyle inflation can quietly convert higher income into higher obligations, and financial freedom depends heavily on the gap between what you earn and what you permanently commit to spending. The sixth habit is using capital to increase future earning power. Not every dollar spent is consumption. Some spending can increase your future capacity. A business might invest in better software. A professional might invest in specialized education. An entrepreneur might hire someone to remove a bottleneck. An investor might spend time learning how businesses actually generate cash flow. The key question isn't, is this expensive? It's, does this increase my ability to create value? Of course, not every course, degree, tool, or business expense produces a return. That's why the decision still needs analysis. The point is to distinguish between spending that simply feels productive and spending that genuinely improves your future capabilities. The seventh habit is being patient when patience has an economic advantage. Markets constantly create pressure to act. Buy this, sell that. Don't miss the next opportunity. Follow the latest trend. But constant activity isn't the same thing as intelligent activity. Compounding needs time. A business needs time to reinvest. Skills need time to develop. Relationships need time to create opportunities. Capital needs time to grow. This is why long-term thinking can become a competitive advantage. You don't necessarily need to win every year. You need to avoid destroying a good strategy because of short-term noise. And there's one final habit that connects everything. They think in systems instead of isolated decisions. A single good investment won't transform your finances if your spending constantly destroys the gains. A high income won't create lasting wealth if every raise produces a new financial obligation. A great business idea won't matter if risk management is non-existent. Wealth is a system. Income feeds savings. Savings create investable capital. Capital purchases productive assets. Assets can generate returns. Returns can be reinvested. And time can potentially amplify the entire process. That's the real lesson behind billionaire wealth. It's not that billionaires possess some magical financial formula. It's that extraordinary wealth often emerges from ownership, leverage, disciplined risk-taking, intelligent capital allocation, and long-term compounding working together. And you don't need extraordinary wealth to use extraordinary thinking. You can start with something much simpler. Before making your next major financial decision, ask yourself 5 questions. What am I actually buying? What is the opportunity cost? What can I realistically lose? Does this increase my future financial capacity? And will this decision still look intelligent 5 years from now? Those questions won't guarantee wealth. Nothing can. But they can help you stop making financial decisions based only on emotion, status, or short-term excitement. Because the goal isn't to think like a billionaire. The goal is to make decisions your future self will be grateful you made. And ultimately, wealth isn't usually created by one extraordinary decision. It's created when good decisions are repeated, bad risks are controlled, productive assets are accumulated, and time is allowed to do its work.